Her dark secret. Abandoned by his wife, crippled dad uncovers a shocking truth about his twin girls. In a small, quiet town where whispers traveled faster than the wind, something sinister was lurking just below the surface. The once peaceful streets were now stained with tension. Eric, a devoted dad paralyzed from the waist down, sat in his dimly lit living room, grappling with an unfathomable betrayal. His wife, Sarah, had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only the haunting echoes of their shattered family. But it wasn't just her disappearance that sent chills down his spine. It was the unsettling behavior of their twin girls, Sophie and Lily. One moment, they were ordinary kids, laughing and playing in the backyard. The next, they were secretive, their wide eyes glinting with something Eric couldn't quite place fear or perhaps a deeper, darker knowledge. On the surface, they were the epitome of childhood innocence. But beneath that facade lurked a tension so palpable it could crush bones. Every time he caught their hushed whispers or saw them exchange furtive glances, a tight knot formed in his chest. Was he losing his grip on reality, or was there something more ominous at play? Eric's instinct, honed by years of sacrifice and devotion as a father, screamed at him to dig deeper. He could sense the shadows shrouding his daughters, wrapping tighter with each passing day. What was hidden behind those innocent smiles? Days turned into restless nights as he pored over old photographs, desperately looking for clues. Sophie, with her curly hair and freckled cheeks, used to clamor for bedtime stories, but recently, she seemed ghostly pale, whispering things that made his heart race. And Lily? Her laughter felt forced, like a trap poised to snap shut. As he sat there, mind racing and body achingly still, a thought clawed its way to the forefront of his mind. Every single secret had a limit, a point where they could no longer remain buried. Could it be that the loss of Sarah was only the beginning? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Unease settled heavily in the pit of Eric's stomach as he pieced together the fragments of his life. The phone rang, slicing through the silence like a knife. It was a number he didn't recognize. He hesitated, his heart pounding in his chest. Should he answer? Before he could decide, the ringing abruptly stopped. Silence. But not just any silence. This was the type that suffocated, thick and claustrophobic. Could it be a clue? A warning? Or was it someone trying to silence him? He felt the world blur, the walls of his home closing in, as he realized he might be standing on the edge of a truth so dark it could swallow him whole. What hidden secrets awaited him in his own home? And would he be ready for the answers he craved? Or would he wish he had never searched at all? The silence was almost deafening. Eric's heart raced as he glanced around the room, his keen instincts on high alert. Had he imagined a phone call? Or had someone out there, someone who might hold the key to unraveling this nightmare, really try to reach him? He willed himself to calm down. Deep breaths. But it was impossible. The atmosphere in the house felt charged, alive with unspoken fears. The shadows danced in the corners, mocking his paranoia. Time slipped by, hours maybe, as he sat in the dark, fixing his gaze on the staircase that led to his daughter's shared room. Would they still be asleep? Or were they plotting? What was it they were whispering about? With a sudden rush of determination, he wheeled his chair toward the stairs. The familiar creak of wood beneath his lingering weight sent chills down his spine, each solitary sound echoing louder than the last. He reached the bottom of the stairs and hesitated. A soft giggle floated down. Sophie and Lily were awake. He clenched his fists. Should he storm up there and demand answers? Or wait, hoping they would reveal their secrets on their own terms? The fear of pushing them away clawed at him, making it difficult to breathe. Resolute, he took the first step up. As he reached the landing, he could hear snippets of conversation. Words tumbled out in hushes, punctuated by soft giggles and the sound of tiny feet shifting restlessly. They were clearly discussing something important. The gravity of it weighed on him, and he leaned closer, the air thick with anticipation. Just then, the door creaked open, and the twins spilled out, their faces illuminating with delight upon seeing him. "Daddy," Sophie chirped, her blue eyes sparkling unnaturally bright. "Did you sleep well?" Eric asked, forcing a smile. "Uh-huh. We had the best dreams," Lily replied, her curly hair bouncing as she hopped up and down. "Tell me about them," he urged, although a nagging feeling twisted inside. As they described tales of adventures involving dragons and magic, a tension gripped his chest. It was all too perfect a facade to distract him. He could sense something beneath their excitement, a tightrope stretched precariously above a chasm of secrets. Interesting dreams," he said, watching their expressions closely. "What else did you see?" Both exchanged a look, almost imperceptibly. It lasted only a split second, yet gravity filled the air, sending a bolt of fear tearing down Eric's spine. Were they hiding something between them? "Do you remember the day Mommy left?" he pressed. "You girls were there when she went away." The room stilled. A hush fell as the vibrant energy drained from their faces, leaving two ghostly figures staring at him. "I don't want to talk about it," Sophie said, her voice suddenly small. "Me neither," Lily echoed, clutching her sister's arm. Eric inhaled sharply, his heart hammering as he felt the ground beneath him shift. It wasn't merely a reluctance to discuss their mother, it was fear. Their fear. "Why not?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper, but the question hung in the air like a storm cloud, ready to unleash its fury. "Because," Sophie began, but then her tiny hands trembled, and Lily pressed her fingers against her lips. Eric's pulse raced. This was the moment. "Because she asked us to forget," Lily cried out suddenly, her words spilling like marbles, unguarded and raw. "She told us to stay quiet, and we promised." Eric felt the world tilt. What had Sarah truly done? The demons he'd been chasing started revealing themselves, their shapes obscured in the firelight of his daughter's confession. Just as he was about to speak, the front door swung open with a heavy thud, jolting them into silence. A figure stood silhouetted against the light, a stranger with intent eyes peering into the room. In that moment, an overwhelming dread washed over Eric. This could change everything. "Where are the girls?" The stranger barked, their voice cold and demanding. His breath caught in his throat as Eric felt the weight of impending chaos pressing in. What had his daughters gotten involved in? And more importantly, who was this new threat stepping into their fragile world? Eric's heart thudded against his ribs. Panic surged, almost forcing the breath from his lungs. He couldn't let this stranger intimidate him, not now. Not when his daughters were right beside him, their fear tangible and chilling. "Who are you?" Eric demanded, squaring his shoulders. He positioned himself as a barrier between the twins and the looming figure, suddenly feeling the weight of his parental role sharpen into focus. The stranger stepped into the light, revealing a weathered face lined with shadows of regret. Dark hair tousled, with an echo of past authority in his stance. Eric felt he had seen this man before, but when, where? "Just answer the question," the stranger snapped, eyes darting to Sophie and Lily, who huddled behind their father, sensing the threat. "I'm not here to hurt them, but I need to talk to them. It's important." "Important?" Eric said, his anger flaring. "What do you want with my girls?" He lifted his chin defiantly. "Your wife," the stranger hissed, his voice low and gritty. "She has caught up in something dangerous. I thought if I could reach the twins." "Stop, right there," Eric interrupted, his blood turning hot. "You know nothing about my family. What do you want with Sarah?" The stranger hesitated, his facade of control slipping slightly. "More than you know." She yes-ed over her head. "I was trying to protect." Eric scoffed. "From what? You break into my home, and you think you can lecture me on protection?" The stranger's expression softened momentarily, and for a fleeting second, Eric caught a glimmer of sincerity. It's not what you think. I'm here out of concern. The things she got involved with, they're not safe. And if she's asking the girls to forget, it's about something much darker. Behind him, the twins clutched at each other, their wide eyes reflecting a spectrum of emotions: fear, confusion, and the beginning of understanding. What do you know? Eric pressed, his heart racing as he felt the fabric of his reality begin to unravel. What is happening to Sarah? Discussing that right here is a mistake, the stranger said, tension flooding his voice. There are ears everywhere. You need to trust me, but you need to get the girls somewhere safe first. Safe from what? Eric demanded, feeling the sharp edge of impending dread clench his throat. Before the stranger could answer, a loud knock echoed through the house, sending shivers down Eric's spine. Another presence. A threat, possibly. He turned toward the direction of the noise, dread pooling in his gut. Stay in here, he whispered to Sophie and Lily, who clung to each other tighter, their innocence a fragile thing at that moment. Whatever happens, do not leave this room. The stranger nodded, understanding the unspoken conclusion they needed to act fast. Eric took a step toward the door, adrenaline pumping, ready to confront whatever was out there. What could possibly await him? Each breath felt heavy with uncertainty. Don't open it, the stranger urged, but the knock came again, more forceful this time. We don't have time to waste. Trust me. Doubt battled with desperation in Eric's heart. Should he risk opening the door? What if it was Sarah? What if it was someone far worse? With tension constricting around them, Eric reached for the doorknob, hesitating just a moment too long. As he grasped it, the figure outside let out a chilling shout that echoed through the house. Open up. It's not safe for the girls. Eric's breath hitched. Who was it? Was this another danger, or help disguised? He felt small fingers tugging at his shirt. Daddy, please don't. But the knock came again, urgent and unyielding. Whatever lay behind that door could change everything for them. Would he dare find out? The moment Eric turned the knob, the door creaked and swung open with a dizzying slowness, his heart thundering in sync with the pulse of fear that coursed through him. His eyes locked onto the figure on the other side, a tall man, drenched in shadows, his expression hard and urgent. Get in, he barked, stepping forward like a wave crashing against the shore, filling the entryway with a looming sense of danger. Instinct kicked in. Eric pushed against the door, trying to shut it while he scanned the street outside for signs of trouble. A rusty pickup truck sat at the curb, its engine rumbling ominously as if it were the beast of some unseen fight ready to roar. But no one else was around. Sarah! The shout cut through the stillness. It was the man standing before him, clearly knowing the one name capable of shattering the tight hold of Eric's fear. What do you want? Eric demanded, his resolve digging in. She's in danger. I want to help you protect the girls, the stranger insisted, eyes wild with urgency. Eric tried to process this, the gravity of the situation sinking in, but his gut twisted in response. He couldn't trust this man. He didn't know what side he was on. Your wife is in deeper than she can handle. The man pressed, taking another step closer, forcing Eric to shift. They think she knows too much. They're looking for her, but they'll use the twins to get to her if they have to. A chill swept down Eric's spine. His daughters' faces flashed in his mind, painting, laughing, believing in their father to protect them from the dark shadows of the world. I don't believe you, Eric said, shaking his head. What have you done to her? Nothing yet, the man retorted, the harsh edge of reality cutting through both their defenses. But there are people, powerful people, you don't want close to your girls. I need you to trust me for one moment. Your wife has secrets, and those secrets are threatening your family. Secrets? What do you mean? Eric's pulse quickened, the weight of uncertainty squeezing his chest. Fighting crime isn't just for the cops anymore. The man said, his voice low and serious. Your wife met someone she shouldn't have, and now they think she's talking. Squeezing his eyes shut for a second, Eric took a breath, pulling wild thoughts together. He needed to think clearly. The man's words clawed at him. It felt like a nightmare bubbling to the surface. Your daughters are innocent, the man continued, sensing Eric's hesitation. But if you don't act, they could be caught in a crossfire you never saw coming. Then it happened again. A hard bang rang out behind them, echoes of loud footsteps creeping closer. The air thickened with tension, and panic clawed at Eric's throat. He looked back at the twins. They were all too quiet now, shattered by whispered fears. Eric, it's no longer just about hiding. They'll be here soon. We need to move. The man urged, his voice steady yet pressing. A quick glance outside revealed more figures approaching, their faces obscured by hoods. They were there for a purpose, and Eric was caught in the middle. Daddy! Sophie's small voice broke through Eric's thoughts. The magnetism of their innocence drew him back into protective mode. Stay close, he shouted, throwing an arm around the girls as he felt their small bodies quake beside him. He glanced back at the man, assessing the situation. Fine, Eric said through gritted teeth, the resolve coiling in his stomach. But if this goes sideways at 1T, if you listen, the man interrupted, urgency anchoring his tone. We leave now, and keep moving until we find your wife. That's the only way we keep them safe. As he took a step towards the shouting and banging outside, Eric knew ignorance was no longer an option. Whatever Sarah had gotten tangled in was dark and dangerous, and they were at the epicenter. With a deep breath, they surged forward, the door heavy behind them, leaving the familiar safety of their home to step into an uncertain world of shadows. But what awaited them in the darkness? Each step felt like a countdown, every echo a reminder that safety was an illusion. Would they find Sarah in time, or would it already be too late? Eric propelled himself into the chaos outside, adrenaline surging through him as he ushered the girls forward behind the shadowy figure. Splintering wood, muffled shouts, everything felt surreal, a dark storm threatening to engulf them. The world he knew was unraveling with every second. Stay close. Keep your heads down. He gripped Sophie's hand tightly, but even more firmly, he clutched Ava's tiny fingers, their safety a relentless mantra echoing in his mind. The man led them with urgency, cutting through the thick night air, his dark silhouette a stark contrast to the neon glow of flickering streetlights. They rounded the corner, and Eric caught sight of several more hooded figures, their faces obscured but not their intent. Shadows slithered like predators, ready to strike. What's your name? Eric managed to gasp, urgency painting every word. Alden, the man replied, still moving swiftly. And you need to trust me, Eric. They're closing in fast. Eric could feel the thrumming heartbeat of fear in his daughters. They were quiet now, eyes wide in confusion, uncertainty creeping into their innocent minds. He shoved down his own fear, focusing on their safety. What do they want? Why are they after Sarah? She stumbled onto something big. They want her to be silent. But believe me, they'll do whatever it takes to ensure that happens. You need to protect your girls, Alden said, his voice low, breathless. Eric stumbled as he caught a glimpse of darkness, shifting behind them, a hulking figure darting across the alley, too close for comfort. A primal instinct surged within him. Run, he barked. They dashed into an open lot filled with abandoned cars, shadows clinging to every crevice. The sound of their hurried footsteps echoed around them, an alarm to all watching. They darted behind a rusted sedan, breath heavy, hearts pounding. Where do we go? He whispered, panic edging into his thoughts. Alden crouched low, eyes scanning the surroundings. We need a vehicle, something fast. Follow my lead, he ordered, his voice strong despite the shifting chaos surrounding them. Eric felt a flash of doubt. Could he trust this man? But the thought of losing his girls fueled his determination. They were in this horror together, and it was the only route left. Stealthily, they moved between the cars, Eric keeping the girls tucked close against him. The sound of heavy boots echoed again, slowing as the figures fanned out. Searching, Eric's heart raced, a whirlwind of emotions battling within him. Was Sarah suffering? What secrets did she carry that now threatened their family? Suddenly, a blaring horn shattered their moment of stealth. Eric's eyes shot toward a nearby rusty coupe, the engine still warm. There, he barked, pointing, Alden nodded, his expression focused. You get the girls to safety. I'll draw them away, he said, taking a step back. No. Eric's voice broke, urgency coloring his tone. We can't split up. They already know you're here, Alden said sharply. If you stay, they'll take the girls. I can distract them long enough for you to escape. Every instinct screamed against it. But trust me, Alden pleaded, eyes flashing. Your family depends on your choice. Do it now. With one last shaky breath, Eric nodded. He hurried the girls toward the car, their small frames pressing against him in unison. The lock clicked loudly as he opened the door, his heart dropping when he noticed they had no time to lose. They had to find Sarah. Alden dashed away, drawing the danger even further away. Daddy, where's Mommy? Sophie's quivering voice broke through the haze of worry. The weight of that question crashed over him. We're going to find her, he promised, forcing a smile despite the storm inside. With trembling fingers, he turned the key in the ignition, praying a miracle would unfurl. But as the car roared to life, a guttural shout pierced the night, the sound of approaching chaos flaring in response. Eric's heart sank. Would they escape? Did Sarah even know they were in danger? In the throes of escape, one chilling thought took hold. What if they were already? Too late? With a grip on the steering wheel, Eric pushed down on the gas, sending the car careening into the unknown, a race against time, truth, and the looming shadows that threatened to snatch away everything he loved. But before they could reach a semblance of safety, a figure loomed ahead, filling the windshield with undeniable darkness. Eric's heart stopped as he braced for impact. What fresh horror awaited them in this night of treachery? Eric gripped the steering wheel tighter, adrenaline coursing through him as he locked eyes with the looming figure. The dark shape was unlike any person he had ever seen, a towering silhouette that felt more like a nightmare than reality. In that split second, the air was thick with dread. He slammed on the brakes, the tires screeching against the pavement, sending them lurching forward. Get down, he shouted, his heart racing in concert with his growing panic. Sophie and Ava instinctively ducked as the car skidded to a halt, the world around them blurring into chaos. The figure stepped closer, illuminated by the dashboard lights, revealing a face twisted by malice. Eric's breath hitched as he saw the hooded man pulling out a weapon. Time slowed as fear seeped into every crevice of his being. With a burst of reckless determination, he released the brake and swerved to the left. The car jerked violently, narrowly missing the figure as Eric veered out of harm's way. He could feel the engine roar beneath him, begging to push on, to escape. But they weren't safe yet. The hooded figure regained his footing and chased after them with unnatural speed, a predatory growl escaping his lips. Faster, Daddy. Please. Sophie's frightened plea jolted Eric back to reality. The innocent faces in the back seat were a reminder of what was at stake. Heart racing, he drove harder, weaving through the dimly lit streets. Ava squeezed Sophie's hand, her eyes wide and trembling. What is happening, Daddy? The piercing innocence in her voice sliced through the heavy haze of panic. Just hold on. I promise I'll keep you safe, he replied, keeping his eyes on the dirt-streaked road ahead, desperately searching for any sign of help or escape. The thump of heavy footsteps echoed behind them, and horror filled him. They were being hunted. He had to think fast. Alden's warning replayed in his mind. This was bigger than him. His focus sharpened as he recalled the map of the city in his head. Only one place could give them a shot at safety, the old warehouse by the docks. Hang on, he yelled, taking a sharp turn that sent the car screeching sideways. Quickly, he shot down a narrow alley, desperate to break the line of sight. Eric's mind raced, thoughts tumbling over one another. He couldn't let them catch him. Not now. Not ever. The car rattled as it hit the gravel of the loading yard. An ominous feeling settled in the pit of his stomach. He skidded to a stop, remnants of the world zoning out into haunting silence. Was it safe? He couldn't hear the footsteps anymore. Daddy? Ava's small voice trembled, breaking the oppressive quiet. Stay close, Eric replied, his heart pounding as he turned to scan the area. The moonlight cast long shadows that taunted him. "We're going to find a way out. I promise." He opened the door slowly, eyes darting for any signs of danger. The night air was thick and humid, filled with the distant sound of water lapping against the docks. Fear clutched at his throat, but he had to push it down. For them, in the distance, he spotted a flicker of light, a distant hope beckoning him forward. But before he could take a step, chaos erupted. The sound of approaching footsteps thundered like an incoming storm, drawing closer by the second. Eric's breath quickened as he reached for the girls, desperation coursing through him. "Get back in the car," he yelled, urgency squeezing his heart. But as they scrambled into the back seat, his body froze. He caught sight of a familiar face in the midst of the darkness, a face he never thought he'd see again. "Sarah?" His voice was barely a whisper, overwhelmed by disbelief. The figure from the shadows stepped into the light, revealing a look of desperation mingled with relief. Yet through her wide eyes flickered something darker. The pieces of the puzzle were aligning, but as the truth swirled ominously in the air, one thought pierced Eric's mind: was she there to save them, or was she part of the nightmare? Suddenly, the distant murmur of voices approached. The realization hit hard. Time was slipping away, and threats were closing in. As Eric fired up the engine, the weight of decisions lay heavy on his soul. Would he trust Sarah? Could he believe in the promise of protection from the very woman whose secrets had torn their family apart? He pressed down on the accelerator, the car shooting forward. The darkness loomed behind them, but the tension in the air hinted at a more profound secret ready to erupt. Would they escape this impending doom? Or would the truth come crashing down, revealing the horrors hidden just beneath the surface? Eric's foot slammed down on the accelerator, the engine roaring to life as they shot out of the loading yard. He risked a glance in the review mirror, half expecting to see the hooded figure back on their tail. But to his surprise, the dark shape was lost to the shadows. For a fleeting moment, hope flickered a small victory. "Daddy, what is happening?" Ava's trembling voice sliced through his racing thoughts, grounding him in the reality of their predicament. He glanced over at Sophie, who was still clutching her sister's hand, as if it were a lifeline. "It's okay, girls. Just hold on tight," he said, trying to inject reassurance into his voice. But inside, fear was wrapping its icy fingers around his heart. They sped down the flickering streetlights, weaving between the remnants of the city that felt both familiar and foreign. Uncertainty gnawed at him. Was Sarah here to help or harm? Her sudden appearance was a jarring disruption, a familiar ghost willing to shatter his fragile world all over again. "Eric," she suddenly shouted, her voice cutting through the air like a knife. "I can help." He hardened his resolve, his knuckles turning white as he gripped the wheel. "Help? Last time I checked, you were part of the problem, Sarah. This is not the time. They're coming." Her frantic tone sounded genuine, but doubt clouded his mind like a fog. He could almost hear the rhythmic pounding of footsteps echoing behind them, a malevolent shadow trailing in their wake. Crashing through the gate into an empty lot on the edge of the docks, Eric slammed the car to a halt. The tires screeched in protest, flinging gravel and dust into the air, creating a wretched veil around them. Through the haze, Eric's eyes darted searching, desperate for a way out. "Get out," he commanded, already unlocking the doors and swinging his own wide open. "We have to find somewhere safe." "Eric, wait," Sarah cried, but he couldn't pause, not for her or anyone. He needed to act. With urgency, he flicked a switch on the dashboard that illuminated the dim glow of their headlights, scanning the perimeter. But just as they stepped into the dim light, the hairs on the back of his neck stood on end. He sensed a movement in the shadows. "Go! Run!" he barked, and with a shove, he propelled the girls toward a clustered pile of crates nearby. The night air vibrated with the tension, each moment pushing him further into panic. A rattling sound broke the stillness. Eric spun, heart pounding as figures appeared from the darkness, emerging like wraiths from a nightmare. "Over here," he yelled, motioning for Sarah to follow him. She hesitated, her eyes darting between him and the girls. "Eric, we need to get out of here now." But before he could respond, a sharp click cut through the chaos, silencing everyone. The figures froze, their intent focused unervingly on him. "Let us get them," one of the men hissed, his voice dripping with malice. Fear paralyzed Eric. His thoughts raced, desperately trying to devise a plan. They needed to work together, a united front against this impending doom. "Sarah, get the girls and move," he shouted, his voice cracking slightly as he turned to face their pursuers. "Eric," Sarah cried, panic lacing her words. But something clicked inside him. He couldn't fall apart. "Not now. Just trust me," he yelled back, adrenaline fueling his desperation. He grabbed a nearby metal pipe, feeling its cool weight in his hands. The sound reverberated around him, rallying his determination. "Let us see what you've got." He challenged the figures advancing toward them. But his bravado was more a mask for his encroaching fear. The men moved closer, a menacing savagery gleaming in their eyes. And just as Eric's heart sank, a sharp voice cut through the tension. "Stop right there." A tall figure stepped forward, authority radiating from him like heat waves from pavement. Eric squinted, recognizing the herald, a friend, a potential ally, someone who could change everything. "Luke?" Eric murmured, disbelief peeling away his layers of fear. Luke nodded, his expression fierce. "We don't have much time. Get back in the car." The truth of their situation spun violently in Eric's mind. The threat looming heavily over them wasn't just faceless entities in the night. This was a tangled web of enemies and betrayal. As they scrambled back to the vehicle, uncertainty clawed at Eric's resolve. Could he trust Luke? Could they escape the storm gathering around them? With determination yet to quell the tightening pit in his stomach, Eric screamed, "Go!" But as they sped off, destiny loomed just ahead, and the walls of secrets were beginning to close in tighter. What awaited them around the corner? Would they uncover truths that would shatter their already fragile existence? The car roared, tires gripping the asphalt as Eric pushed the accelerator deeper. The night seemed alive, hostile, shadows flickering in the rear view like the ghosts of their past. Luke's presence hung heavy in the air. Trust was a luxury he couldn't afford, yet here they were, pinned between darkness and danger. "Where are we going?" Sarah's voice cracked, and for a brief second, panic flickered in her eyes. "Anywhere but here," Eric grunted, eyes locked on the road ahead. They needed to put miles between themselves and the shadows chasing them. For the girls, he had to shield them. Their future rested on this drive. Those men back there, they weren't just random thugs, were they? Luke's voice was calm, but laced with urgency. "They're after something big." "Yeah, well, I'd like to know what that something is." Eric snapped, frustration boiling over like a pot left to simmer too long. "We're not even safe yet." They hurtled down the empty roads, the headlights flashing against the cold, unyielding buildings. The city felt hollow, a maze waiting to swallow them whole. Fear clawed at Eric's insides. Each fluorescent blink of the streetlights felt like a ticking clock. Behind them, a low rumble grew louder. "They're gaining on us," Sarah shouted, twisting in her seat to glance at the rear window. "Hang on." Eric gritted his teeth, swerving to the right and narrowly missing the curb. The tires screeched like banshees, adrenaline coursing through his veins. He could feel the breath of the hunting wolves behind him, feel the rough edge of despair nibbling at the fringes of hope. Luke reached over, bracing himself against the dash. "We can't outrun them forever. We need a plan." "Yeah, because driving like a maniac is obviously working," Eric muttered. But he knew Luke was right. Time was slipping. Just then, a loud crash erupted, metal against metal, a car racing up beside them. Eric's heart jumped. The driver's face was obscured, but the aggression radiating from him was palpable. This wasn't just a chase. It was a showdown to the imposing vehicle swerving closer. Eric's instincts kicked in. "Sarah, keep the girls down." He gripped the wheel tighter, every muscle in his body tensing for what was to come. The other driver leaned out, an arm emerging with something shiny. A gun. Panic seized Eric. Hold on, he screamed, yanking the wheel to the left and barreling down a dim side street, praying the maneuver would throw them off. Bullets whizzed past, shattering glass and ricocheting off the metal edges. But Eric kept pushing forward, the growling engine drowning out the chaos. In the chaos, their world narrowed the beam of the headlights, the looming shadows, and the whispers of the past. Down, he shouted again, ducking lower in his seat, the car rattling like it might burst apart at any moment. Time was fractured, each second felt like hours, each breath tightening around his chest like a vice. And then, in the corner of his eye, a flash of red, a stoplight blazing against the darkness ahead. Hang on. He twisted the wheel hard, braking sharply. They slid into an alley, where shadows danced maliciously in the flickering light. Eric, what are you doing? Sophie pleaded, her voice trembling, echoing the fear in his heart. Searching for an escape, he muttered. We need to. Another car screeched to a halt at the alley mouth, backing them into a darkened corner. Eric were trapped, but then he saw a narrow space between two buildings just ahead. It was tight, barely enough for their vehicle, but it was an escape, a way out. This way, he shouted, shifting quickly into gear, darting towards the gap with racing heartbeats on his side. They squeezed through, metal scraping against brick. Just as they emerged on the other side, the growl of the pursuing engines echoed. In here, Luke yelled, spotting a decrepit warehouse nearby. It could offer shelter, a moment to regroup, maybe even a safe haven. Eric shot a glance back at the girls, their wide eyes full of fear and confusion. Stay close, no matter what. They rushed inside, the darkness engulfing them. As the door slammed shut behind them, heart pounding, Eric pressed his back against the cold concrete, straining to hear the actions outside. But the only sounds bouncing off the walls were their ragged breaths and the steady thrumming of Eric's pulse in his ears. Then a chilling thought. What do we do now? He turned slowly, filled with dread as shadows loomed closer in the murky depths of the warehouse. Just as he felt lost, a faint light flickered ahead, and with it, the realization that answers lay within. What secrets would they uncover in the dark? And would the truths he found bring them closer to safety or deeper into peril? In the dim light of the warehouse, shadows danced across the walls, casting eerie shapes that felt alive. Each flicker sent a jolt of anxiety through Eric as he moved cautiously forward, the echo of the slam behind them still ringing in his ears. Was it safe? Were the pursuers still out there? Whispers of doubt loomed larger with every step. Stay close, he murmured, turning back. The girls clung to each other, their faces pale with fear. He could see Sophie's eyes darting, taking in every crevice of the darkroom. She squeezed Sarah's hand tighter, both seeking reassurance while trapped in their own spiral of terror. Luke squinted towards the faint glow ahead, his expression shifting from dread to focus. There's something there, he said, pointing into the dark. Let's check it out. Eric couldn't shake the feeling of being hunted, the primal instinct to flee clawing at him. But there was nowhere to run. What if it's a trap? He warned, his voice low. We can't rush into another ambush. We don't have time to waste, Luke replied firmly, stepping ahead. Eric hesitated, but a glance back at the girls steeled his resolve. They needed answers, and maybe this flickering light held them. Cautiously, they moved toward the source, a small battery-operated lamp on a rickety table, illuminating a series of crates stacked haphazardly in the corner. Dust motes floated in the air, and there was an unmistakable smell like oil and rust. The light also revealed something else, a tattered folder sitting on the edge of the table. Look at this, Luke said, reaching for the folder. Eric watched as Luke flipped it open, his brows furrowing. Inside were documents, photos pinned with yellowed tape, each one depicting the same girls, but not the ones Eric loved. What the hell is this? Eric's heart raced, confusion swirling in his gut. The girls' innocent faces had been replaced with strangers, a matching pair of twins locking eyes with the camera, their smiles bright yet hollow. This isn't just a coincidence, Luke muttered, scanning each page. These kids, they have records dating back years. Something happened to Scandal. But before they could dive deeper, the harsh sound of metal scraping against concrete sliced through the air. Someone was outside, moving fast. Their attackers had found them. "Hide!" Eric hissed, darting behind a stack of crates, pulling the girls with him. He held his breath, heart thundering in his chest like a war drum. From her hiding spot, they could see the shadows of men, 3, maybe 4, crashing through the door with determined shouts. Their voices were harsh, filled with authority. "Split up. Secure the perimeter. They can't have gone far." Eric's pulse quickened. This was it. They were closing in. "What do we do?" Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. Eric squeezed her shoulder, trying to project strength he didn't feel. "Listen to me," he instructed urgently. "We stay quiet. We don't move until it's safe." As the men rummaged through the warehouse, Eric fought back the swell of panic. He realized the folders still lay on the table, exposed. The secrets it held were about to be uncovered, not just their identities, but something greater lurking just beneath the surface. Suddenly, a loud crash erupted. One of the men had discovered the folder. "What the hell is this?" The words hung in the air like a noose, tightening around Eric's throat. He couldn't let them find out who the girls really were. But then he caught a glimpse of something out of the corner of his eye. The girls, retreating instinctively further into the shadows, drawn to the danger like moths to a flame. "Stop!" Eric shouted, panic surging through him. It was too late. They'd caught sight of him. The men turned, eyes ablaze with ferocity, smiles twisted with malice. Eric's heart dropped. Darkness wasn't just chasing them anymore. It had found them, claws ready to sink deep. "Get back!" he screamed, taking a step forward instinctively, but the shadows weren't finished yet. A gunshot rang out, echoing through the vast emptiness of the warehouse as Eric lunged to protect the girls. What would he sacrifice to keep them safe? As the dust settled and fear clawed at his insides, the weight of choices hung over him. Would he find the truth about the girls, or was he sealing their fate in the process? Eric lurched forward, adrenaline surging as the deafening gunshot pierced the air. Time slowed, his heart pounding like a war drum against his ribs. "No!" he shouted, leaping in front of the girls, the weight of his body acting as a barrier. But in that fleeting moment of instinct, a sense of impending dread washed over him. Had he moved fast enough? The air twisted with suspense, but the gunman missed. The bullet ricocheted against the wall, shattering debris. Eric seized the opportunity, lunging toward the closest assailant. They crashed into each other, 2 forces colliding in a desperate grappling match. Their bodies sprawled across the cold concrete floor. Fear and fury knotted together as Eric's fists rained down on the man's face, driven by a primal instinct to protect. "Daddy, no!" Sophie's terrified voice cut through the chaos. He stole a glance back to see both girls glued to Sarah, their eyes wide with fear. With a roar of strength, he pushed the man off, scrambling to his feet as the others converged on them. "We need to go." Luke's voice blared, urgency echoing against the warehouse walls. "This way." He motioned toward a narrow exit, the light from outside glimmering hazily, a beacon of hope. Eric grabbed the girls' hands, pulling them close as they darted after Luke, each step purposefully filled with the determination to escape the darkness closing in. The thud of footsteps crashed behind them, danger pursuing like a predator onto its prey. Sophie clutched tighter to Eric's arm, and Ava's grip on her sister's hand felt fragile, a tether of innocence amidst the chaos. As they burst through the exit, cold night air filled Eric's lungs, but he didn't dare stop. The sprawling shipyard lay ahead, remnants of rusted boats and creaking piers scattered in a disarray that mirrored the turmoil in his heart. The haunting sounds of pursuit echoed through the night, forcing them onward. "Over there," Luke shouted, pointing at an old fishing boat, a clumsy refuge hidden from sight. "Get in." They rushed onto the vessel, Eric shoving the girls inside and slamming the door, his heart pounding in sync with the rushing chaos. "What now?" Sarah asked, breathless. We'll need to start the engine. There must be a way to keep them off our trail, Eric replied, scanning the cramped quarters. In the dim light, the sound of footsteps grew louder. Their hunters were close. Look, over there, Sophie shouted, pointing to a small generator humming along the side. Hope surged in Eric's chest. Yeah, he called, rushing over. It wasn't too much, but it could buy them time. He turned the crank, praying for a miracle. The engine sputtered, an exhausting moan echoing in the silence before finally roaring to life. Yeah, let us go, Luke yelled, clapping him on the shoulder just as the door burst open. They rushed to the cockpit, Eric slamming the throttle forward, the boat lurching as the engine caught. The shouts of their pursuers flooded into the vessel, but as the wind whipped against his face, he felt free in a way he and T felt for a long time. Go, go, Sarah urged, frantic. Hold on tight, Eric shouted, feeling the engines surge beneath him. Darkness withdrew behind them. The shadows seemed to dissipate into the vast ocean as the boat sped past the dock. Where's Mom? Lily asked, her voice a trembling whisper. A deep lump formed in Eric's throat. He had planned to shield them from the truth, but they deserved answers. I don't know, but we're going to find her. He gripped the wheel tighter, determination and fear warring inside him. In the distance, faint lights glimmered, the shape of hope carving its way through the night. That's the city. Luke pointed, urgency returning to their journey as he adjusted course. They surged forward, Eric's heart thrumming in a rhythmic beat. Behind them, the chaos was losing its grasp, but ahead truth felt like a veil, each mile shedding fragments of uncertainty. Finally, as they reached the shore, he spotted familiar faces, a group gathering near the docks, police lights swirling in shades of blue and red. It's safe, he screamed, the first tendrils of hope wrapping around him. He turned back to see both girls visibly shaken, but hope ignited in their eyes, a flicker of belief that maybe, just maybe, they would find their mother, woven back into the life they cherished. They disembarked, feet hitting the sand with purpose. Eric, a voice broke through the clamor. It was a familiar face, Alden, relief washing over him like the tide. Eric, you did it. Alden grinned, but the joy faded slightly. But we need to move quickly this isn't over. Where's Sarah? He demanded, standing tall despite the remnants of fear still gripping him. There's a lot to explain, Alden said, urgency tangling around his words as he gestured toward the gathering crowd. But she's safe, she's coming. For now, we need to regroup. The finality of that moment painted relief across Eric's chest, but he knew the fight wasn't done. Standing alongside Luke and Sarah, they gathered as shadows began to shift in the distance. In what felt like an eternity, the twisted truths and hidden nightmares lay ahead, echoing like the tide against the shore. It wouldn't just be about finding Sarah now. It would be about facing the secrets that had vanished their family's peace. With a firm grip on his daughter's trembling hands and a determined heart, Eric prepared to step into the light. They would get to the bottom of this together, uncover the truth together, no matter what darkness awaited them. No more hiding, no more terror. In that moment, they turned toward the waiting crowd, prepared to mend their family and reclaim their life with love and unwavering courage as their guide. Now, it's time for you to be part of this journey. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss what happens next. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us grow. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Join us as we continue to uncover the mysteries that await.